The Drug Alternative Program presents Drugs Close to Home. Your weekly insight into the ongoing stories of struggle, victory, and the spiritual renewal of rehabilitation. Each week, Cliff and Freddie Harris, co-founders of the Drug Alternative Program, would like to introduce you to the many people who have touched their lives through their spirit-filled ministry. But most of all, they would like to share with you the blessings they continue to receive from Jesus Christ. And now, your hosts of Drugs Close to Home, Cliff and Freddie Harris.
Welcome to Drugs Close to Home, a program about the destruction that drugs causes our families.
And the power of Jesus Christ that heals them. We believe every life is worth saving.
And Freddie, that is so true, because every changed life is a miracle from God.
Amen. Listen, before we introduce our guest today, I wanted to just say something personal about you and me.
Oh, go for it then.
What did you give me when we first met?
One red rose.
You guys, it was so beautiful. And that one red rose has become the trademark of our marriage and also a part of the logo for Drug Alternative Program. If you see our trucks, you see one red rose on there. And honey, I remember we had our double celebration, my 50th birthday and our 10th wedding anniversary.
Wait a minute. You guys, I don't have to give her a dozen of roses for her birthday or any other time, Valentine's. I don't have to give her a dozen. All I have to do is buy one. Just get one.
Right. So at this double celebration, we decided to make it the theme, the miracle of one red rose. I carried one red rose, the boutonnieres, the bouquets. It was one red rose on the table, so the whole thing was one red rose.
Yes.
And I remember one day I was going to the stationery store. I run out thank you notes, and I said, well, you know, I want to get a thank you note with one red rose. And you guys, I walked into the stationery store, and I'm looking around, and I saw this bunch of cards, you know, and so the Holy Spirit impressed me, open it up. And I said, this doesn't, look at this. Does this look like this would have one red rose if you opened it up? And I just walked around the store maybe 10 or 20 minutes, and the Holy Spirit kept impressing, open it up. And you guys, I opened it up, and what do you think was there? One red rose. Have you ever seen anything so beautiful? Just for me, one red rose, and this is my official thank you notes that I send to our friends.
And that want to make you do what?
Shout!
Shout! All right, amen for the shout.
So, as you know, one red rose is special to Cliff and me. Now, the person that we have as our guest today is a man of distinction. And I just want to give you a brief summary. This is a man who has been in the Seventh-day Adventist work for 61 years. He's been married for 61 years. He also marched in the civil rights movement. He was president of Oakwood College for 14 years. He worked for the General Conference as vice president for 16 years. He was chairman of the board for the Oakwood College and Loma Linda University. He was a founder of Operation Reachback, which is a social action group. He has retired not once, not twice, but 3 times, you guys. First after 50 years, then he's worked in Las Vegas, Arizona, so he's retired 3 times. And also, he has published 7 books, and one very important book I will tell you about later. And guess what else? He loves to play golf. So I want to introduce to you a distinguished guest, Dr. Calvin Rock.
Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Rock.
Couldn't have done it better myself.
We are so privileged to have you as our guest today. And we want you to just tell us about you and what's happened in your life and just what a blessing God has been to you.
Thanks. First of all, let me say that I am honored to be asked to be with you. I admire what you're doing. And I recall your influence on a lot of young people with whom I worked as president of Oakwood College, now Oakwood University. And across the country and around the world, your efforts are encouraging and inspiring.
Praise him.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Now,
Where do you
I,
start?
I wish I could. No, I don't wish I could tell you I've been on drugs. I don't wish that. But I wish I had a more exciting story to tell you.
Your life is exciting.
It's just that of child of the church. My maternal grandmother, the late Etta Littlejohn, accepted the Seventh-day Adventist truth as it was preached from the decks of the Morning Star in the early 1890s.
Wow.
When the son of our prophet, Ellen White, built a boat in Michigan and sailed down onto the Mississippi River and preached to the children of the recently freed slaves. Some of the plantation owners would let them come out and others wouldn't. But this little mulatto girl heard about the Sabbath and accepted the gospel and was one of the original 16 students at Oakwood when the school opened its gates in 1896.
Praise the
So
Lord.
that was the first year that Oakwood University opened?
Yeah, of course it was.
1866?
1896.
Oh, 1896.
And she was one of the original 16 students. So if you ask me about my roots, I proudly point you back to Yazoo City, Vicksburg, Mississippi, where my grandmother became a Seventh-day Adventist, and from whence she left to go to Oakwood. And there she met Robert Bradford. They had 8 children, one of whom was my late mother, Eva Bradford Rock, whom you knew.
Yes.
And her youngest sibling is Charles E. Bradford, that
We
a
had
lot
him
of
on the
your
program.
viewers would know, who is my uncle. I'm married, the father of 3 daughters, 5 grandchildren, 1 granddaughter, 4 grandsons, 2 great-grandchildren now. So my wife and I climbing the hill.
All right.
She's 83, I'm 84.
Praise
Praise
the
the
Lord.
Lord.
We've been married, as you have noted, for 61 years. And happy to serve the Lord. And since I'm healthy, I made a promise. You talked about my 3 retirements, and that's true. But I told the Lord, as long as he gives me strength, I'll give him service.
And you know what that is,
So
Frank?
I'm scared to stop serving him because he might
You know
stop
what
giving
that
me
is?
the strength.
I was telling him the other night, it's not about making money. That's not it.
Not in the Adventist ministry.
Yes. But that's never been your passion. Your passion is
Evangelism.
evangelism. I want to let people know about Jesus Christ.
Yes.
You are a disciple for Christ. And that's what I've recognized in just talking with you. So tell us, how did you get started in the ministry, to become a minister?
Yeah, well, my grandfather, the person that Etta Littlejohn, who accepted the truth in 1896, was a pastor. Later on, his father became a pastor. My uncle Charles Bradford, with whom I spent a lot of time when we were younger. He's 5 years older than I, but he's a real mentor. So I was surrounded with ministry and spent a lot of time in pastors' homes. And from an early age, I was thinking about being a pastor. But my mother, who moved to LA, Los Angeles, when I was 11, moved my sister and me. She was a single mother at that time of 2 children whom she was rearing. Came in 1941, the year of Pearl Harbor. And there I was asked by Pastor Hope Robertson,
Oh,
a name
know him.
some people may remember,
We know him.
who was a dynamic speaker. Of course, he didn't arrive at the old Wadsworth Church, now university, till around 45 or so. But he took a liking to me and had me do little speeches on Sabbath, what we now call the children's story.
Right.
Oh,
And,
so you started out just telling the children's story.
Well, it was then called the Youth Corner, it had a different
Okay.
name. And they trusted me. They
Hold
really
it just a
shouldn't
minute.
have. They shouldn't have trusted
Just
me.
a minute.
They didn't know.
I want to stop you right there.
Okay.
You know that word he used that's dynamic to me,
Yeah.
and that word is
Trust. They did.
Trust.
Yeah.
And so we have to be trusted in all parts of our life. When we're out there doing our lives, we have to be trusted.
Right.
And I see that in you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was not converted. Not converted. I'd been baptized because I was
Yeah.
in church school and they had a baptismal class, and I was caught up with the crowd. I got baptized. But under Hope Robertson, I was converted. And as a result, people said, well, hey, you did a good job. We like you ought to be a pastor. And more people spoke. And with encouragement of the group think,
Yeah.
the group think
Right.
arrested me,
Okay.
and I was channeled into ministry. Yeah.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit, maybe some experiences that you had.
You're a world traveler. I know
yes.
you've gone around the world. So
What were some of those places you've been? Let me see. China?
Yes. In my work as president at Oakwood College, then now Oakwood University, I was delegated to attend a lot of meetings, and I had to do a lot of traveling, and some of it was voluntary. For instance, I'd always wanted to go to Africa. I never wanted to go a lot of places, but two places I wanted to see as a boy were Africa and England.
Okay.
And I got to see them and much more. 72 countries I have had the privilege
Well, tell us
of preaching in.
which country did you you went to was your most, that maybe you had, it was problems there, or the ministry didn't go well, or you got opposition from the government or whatever?
Yeah, the most exciting continent was Africa, because that was, I wanted to see my roots.
your roots.
You know, and my wife and I visited 10 countries back in '79, and that was the beginning of my world travel.
In
To
England?
a large extent. England a little later, that was also very enlightening. But you're asking about problems. I think Ghana and Siberia were two places where I encountered difficulties preaching. Later, when I traveled as a vice president of the General Conference for those 16 years, I was holding evangelistic meetings. When I traveled as president of Oakwood, it was simply recruitment and didn't have any problems. But when I pitched tents or preached in halls, certain governments did reject the idea. And in Ghana, it was very, very touchy, because they just assassinated the leader of the country. And when I landed from Monrovia, I was told I looked exactly like the recently assassinated leader.
Wow.
And because that was in Liberia, but the people in Ghana were very leery, and they just had a coup there as well. So when they saw this big crowd every night, and I had 2 different locations, and these strange people from America had a big crew with me, they were afraid of an uprising, and they stopped my meetings, or at least stopped me, and told me that I couldn't get back into the pulpit. And I'd just gotten the people to the point of baptism. I preached the commandments and the Sabbath, and was about to baptize, had a huge crowd, but I couldn't go back. So the local pastors had to do it several nights. But the lieutenant who was the pilot for the leader of the country is an Adventist. And they got to him, and he said, I'll take care of it. So he talked to the leader, and I got back in the pulpit on Friday night, and I walked into the stadium, and the people were bowing, praying for me, asking the Lord to allow me to get back. When I walked up on the rostrum, and the place just exploded with praise.
Well, we want to take a break right now, and we'll come back, and we want you to pick up right from where you went. Okay? All right. We'll be right back.
Growing up, there wasn't a lot of love. Didn't have a father. My mother was an addict. And so when I came here, I experienced a lot of security, a lot of love, tough love, and that's what I needed, is what I was seeking out, and the Lord helped me to get to a place where that existed.
Drug alternative program, it's a different kind of place that you can really see the difference that it's making, both in the clients and in the staff members who themselves were clients themselves at some point. And so the difference that it's making in my life, because of its structure and the way it's built, is something that I'm excited to think about my future about.
the impact that DAP have given me, as you know, as an individual, is I'm accepted, I'm cared for, and I'm loved. And that was something I kind of gave up on, you know, before I got here.
We're talking to Dr. Calvin Rock today. Now, Dr. Rock, we were talking about your world travels.
Yes, and you were asking whether we had difficulties. Not a lot, but there were a few places. I mentioned earlier the situation we ran into in Ghana, in Accra, and we had a similar incident in Siberia. I didn't want to go to Siberia. I really wanted to go to some other place in Russia to do my meeting, but somebody else had gotten into St. Petersburg before we did, and we were asked to go to Siberia, and I said, oh my, people don't get back from Siberia. This is where they send you when they don't want to see you anymore.
No more.
And being the first black evangelist to get into Siberia, I said, no, you know, folks will say, you know, they sent that black man purposely over there to Siberia. But I got over there. I talked to my mother. She said, son, you go. The reason they want you to go is they know you can handle it.
Right.
So I went, and they were so wonderful.
Oh,
I mean, just the sweetest people in the world. But the Russian Orthodox Church did not like the fact that these evangelical groups were coming in, and what we were preaching was very different from what they had been teaching. And of course, the Russian Orthodox religion is rather somber. And you walk into their churches, their houses of worship, and they're very staid and shawls and sitting quietly. And here we come with this upbeat music and, you know, going. So it was a shock to the system. But we baptized well over 1,000 people there. And it was a great experience. And of course, in my travels, my wife and I traveled around the world many times. The oddest or the most unusual place we went was Outer Mongolia. It was like stepping into another world. You could hardly identify much because the houses were different, the dress and the whole culture. But you didn't ask about that. You asked about unusual incidents of opposition. I'll mention China finally. The communists closed down all Protestant and, in fact, all religion in China when they took it over in the 50s, but when communism took hold. But they do allow for religion by the state. In other words, they call it the three-self religion. It has to do with self-reliance and self-worth and the three selves they call it.
So in other words, what they want to do is the government really
regulated it.
Want to control
That's
all
right.
of it.
And you cannot have, in most places, now of course China is so different in some respects in various parts of the land. And in some places you may find a Seventh-day Adventist church. But in most of the big cities, you just have a church service on Saturday and one on Sunday with no regard to who's going there and no particular doctrinal holding. But anyway, we had to smuggle Bibles into China. Our headquarters, and I chaired that committee for over 10 years, headquarters was in Hong Kong. And when we went through into China, we'd have Ellen White's books and song books in the bottom of our bags, and it was okay as long as, you know, the Orientals don't want to lose face.
Right.
And as long as we didn't let them know that we knew, that we knew, that they knew that we had these books, we were okay. But if we let them know, if we just looked like we knew they knew, that we knew they knew we had these, then there were going to be problems. But we were excited to be able to share the gospel in that way. And you mentioned personalities, yes. A lot of them. I had the privilege of speaking personally with Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, we wanted to ask you a little bit because we found out that you have done some marching during the
civil rights
movement.
Yeah, those days.
Give us a little bit on that background of that.
A very exciting time in history. Very exciting time in history in the late 50s and early 60s. I was living in Orlando, Florida, and Miami during the peak of those years, and participated with the ministers of the city. Um, I drove the cars, helped drive. I didn't go into the theaters when they integrated them, but I drove the car and waited till they got out. Maybe
Right.
that's a little sanctimonious, but anyway, hypocritical. But we also sat in restaurants. I'll never forget one restaurant we were integrating in Miami. When we were leaving, after they refused to serve us, we stayed there a while. Dear lady, Caucasian lady, met us at the door and said, "Get out of my way." And this tall Baptist minister who was with me looked at her and said, "Madam, you've been in my way for 300 years."
Amen. Amen,
All right.
Dr.
And of
Rock.
course, that was kind of the spirit of things.
Right.
But we saw change,
Yeah.
and praise God, is very different now.
Okay, what other famous people have you?
I shook
Yeah.
hands with President Kennedy, Ed Kennedy. Well, not Ed. Yeah, I shook hands with Ed too, Edward Kennedy, his brother. But before that, with JFK,
Amen.
when he was a senator running for office. And I've shaken hands with Ronald Reagan and the elder Bush.
Oh,
As
okay.
president of the school, I had to attend banquets and functions where they
Yes.
were. And one evening in Atlanta airport, I saw this dark-skinned fellow with slick hair. I said, that's Nat King Cole.
All
I walked over and
right.
said, "Hey, my name is Calvin Rock. What's your," you know? And I asked him if he knew some people, and Joyce Bryant and some
Right.
other folk, and he did. And of course, Kissinger, and Ronald Reagan. I shook hands with Ronald Reagan.
All right.
And
You've met a
all
lot
of them had
people.
different handshakes, you know.
Right.
Mr. Reagan's was a little soft, but most of them were strong, and I was privileged to be in the
Amen.
presence of a lot of royalty in that
Amen.
You
regard.
know, that's a blessing from God
Yeah.
within himself that, you
Yeah.
know, you've met all these distinguished people in your life.
Yes. Okay, changing the subject just a little, Dr. Rock, I wanted to tell you that, you know, as Drug Alternative Program, we've been trying to be more influential, you know, in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And sometimes we just feel like we're not getting through. And I just wanted to get your opinion on the situation with drugs in the Adventist Church.
Truthfully, the church isn't doing enough. The church needs to do more. We have a way of kind of ignoring some of these social ills. That's not good. We need to do better. I think we are doing better than we once did, but we still need to pay more attention to family relations
Yes.
and other social issues that plague our people, and not fool ourselves and go along as if they don't exist. They do exist. Now, we'll tell you that we even have some ministers who've been caught up in addictions, drug addictions, one of them. And our conferences are doing very well now in that regard, because even though they may be removed from the ministry permanently or for a time, they are placed in programs.
Good.
You may have had some in your program, I'm not sure, but they have been placed in rehabilitation situations where the conferences pay for
the
their care
rehabilitation.
and see that they have that kind of support as they are
You know,
rehabilitated.
because Satan is busy today. You know
Yeah.
why I think that? Because he knows he has a short time.
Oh, yes,
He knows that the time
Yeah.
is short for him.
yeah.
So if he can get whoever,
Preacher,
can.
teacher, doesn't matter,
yes,
right?
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and thank God,
Yes.
I can tell you that our conferences are
Yes.
alert, and these people who have problems in that area
You
are
know, our
getting help.
conference right here, it works very closely with us. We
Good.
work with them.
Very supportive.
Very supportive of Drug Alternative Program.
Well,
It's
that's great.
Also is Loma Linda University. They're very supportive of Drug Alternative Program. And those are blessings from God within himself.
You know, I said that Dr. Rock is a publisher of 7 books, and this is his latest book called Something Better. And we didn't even know about the book, Dr. Rock. I went to the bookstore and received it, so now I have a devotional for the guys and for us. And I read the one today on the faith of Abraham. And Dr. Rock is the first Afro-American to write a devotional book. And we just wanted to let you know that we really appreciate this. And just tell us how this book came by.
You know, I became enamored with the book of Hebrews, which is all about something better. When you read the book of Hebrews, you see that the author talks about Christ as a better tabernacle, a better sacrifice, a better high priest, and a better sanctuary. 10 or 11 something betters. And Ellen White has a statement or two that says pretty clearly that the expression something better states Christ's mission on earth as well as any other way of putting it. He came to bring us something better.
Amen.
And that's something you and your programs can also enunciate. There's something better than illicit sex, something better than alcohol, something better than money and being greedy for worldly goods. And that something better is Jesus and his program
the same thing
and
I
his
always
love.
wanted to do was to do something to make things better, somebody's life to be better than what mine was.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So that's what I see in you.
Every time I go to a store or I'm on the street and I see people puffing on cigarettes, I want to say there's something better than cancer. You know, and there's something better. God made us to be healthy. We know that we all have to die if time lasts. As soon as we're born, we begin to die. But there's something better than killing yourself.
That's right.
Something better than wasting your time. Something better than throwing away your opportunities. So
and
the book seeks to illuminate that.
It was published by Review and Herald, and you can find it in the Adventist bookstore. It's a good book, and we want you to support this first Afro-American author for devotional. Dr. Rock, we want to really thank you for
You're welcome.
being
Thank
with
you.
us today. This is
Thank
a
you.
special.
It's an honor to talk to you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
We love you and appreciate you, and we'll continue to pray
Thank you.
for your program.
The telephone, don't forget the telephone. Now, the telephone is how you can get in touch with us. What is it?
The internet.
The internet.
Look us up on the internet.
Look
Drug
us up
Alternative
on
Program.
the internet. And if you find us on the internet, see, I'm not too computer oriented person, but I can talk on the telephone. So give us a call. And behind us, you can see right now there are avocados on this tree. Now, if you would like some avocados from us, all you have to do is get in touch with us on the telephone, and we will send you some avocados right behind you. See them? See all those avocados on that tree? Give us a call, and we will send you a box of avocados. Freddie, you want to close this out?
We just want to thank you for coming and hearing our program today, and want to tell you that we love you.
And Jesus loves you even more.
Thank you, Dr. Rock.
You're welcome.